Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kathy Grimm and the channel is that of the Grimm Reader. And this has been, didn't do an update last week because it was my birthday. And so it's been 2 weeks. And that does seem like a long time, doesn't it? Since I have come on here to talk about what I'm reading in my life, etc. We've entered into the really busy phase of the semester. And I can tell, so one thing is I'll leave the ums in for time reasons just because I don't have time to spend a lot of time editing. So, and I noticed, overall, mentally I'm okay, but I feel weird because what's happening is everything's going fine, but the anxiety is kind of now turning into expressing itself in terms of being irritable. And sort of, in German there's a word aufbrausend. So I just kind of, these little explosions of irritation at people, specifically my poor husband, or situations in a way that I'm finding like I need to really kind of rein it in. It's a little, what's the word? Annoying. It's annoying and I just need to watch for it, and it's connected to being anxious and sometimes also maybe just my health issues, but it's sort of different from feeling lethargic and chronic fatigue. It's more towards mildly manic, although it's not really manic. Maybe it's how I get manic, which is to get cranky. So in this sort of quick way, like it doesn't take much to let the short fuse type situation. It's very odd. And then there's also some underlying anxiety there too, but I'm just keeping an eye on it, and you know, if I need to, I can take something and everything's fine. But it's sort of, I can tell, and I think partly what's going on is just the busyness of the semester, and in a way the classes are going fine, and I'm even kind of settling into the new book, but now it's turning into kind of preemptive, not exactly worry, but thinking about the fact that I'll be leaving at the very end of the semester straight away for Germany and my trip to London for a week. And so, yeah, that's what's going on. The birthday was fine. It was a little bit weird turning 60 because it was sort of like, in a way I prefer the non-big birthdays because then you can just, and also it wasn't really good that it was on Sunday because I did all my work on Saturday so I could take Sunday off, but that kind of didn't work. I mean, I did do that, but it didn't feel right. It kind of threw me out of my rhythm and routine, which is to take Saturday off, you know, sometimes to the point of not even getting dressed, and then coming back to work on Sunday. And so it kind of messed with that a little bit. So I couldn't really completely relax, but it was still a nice day and it was fine. We had yummy food, whatever. No big deal, no big deal. And it was funny, so let's talk Victober first. And, you know, I'm on the Discord and I had all these grandiose ideas about stuff and even making a video. And I posted the picture of the books that I'm looking at them over here, that my relatives wrote. But I just don't think I have time to do a lot of dedicated videos to Victober. And so we'll see. I would like to, but I just don't think I have the width in my brain, the brain space for doing that. But what's weird is that, so the group read is this one by Trollope, The Way We Live Now. I forgot to check where it falls in his oeuvre. And it's my first standalone Trollope. So what do? I go and start listening to it on the 17th of September and I finished it today. I'm such a bad group reader because I'm just listening to it and I wasn't paying attention to, I didn't want to wait and go along with, because I just want to read it, you know, because I'm busy. But I didn't think I would finish it this quickly, and I did. I finished it in a couple of weeks, even though, and so everyone says it's 1,000 pages, but my copy here is only quote unquote 754. And I did dip into it a little bit at the end, so the text itself, I'm glad I have the text to go back to and maybe read the introduction. I would have to honestly say, so I started my Trollope journey with Barsetshire, wasn't blown away by the Warden, but the rest of them I loved. Specifically Dr. Thorne, and the last one's great. Actually, all of the last four are great, I think. Even Barsetshire Tales is good. And then I've already read, and then I switched sort of to listening more and also dipping in. So I read the three Palliser, first Palliser, Can We Forgive Her, Phineas Finn, and Eustace Diamonds. And then I read this one. So how many is that? That's 6, 7, 8, 9. Is this really my 10th trollop? Really? Really? Can that be right? Oh, there's 6 of the Basset. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Point being, I like this a little bit less than any of the other ones, except for the Warden, which I thought was, because I just have a hard time with Septimus. Everyone thinks he's such a sweetie, and I'm like, Septimus. I'm not that interested in Septimus. He's okay, Septimus Harding. I'm sorry to be mean about him, because he's like an overly good person, but also kind of wimpy. I don't know. But for some reason, this was fine. I think I may have only given it 4. It's the first time I've ever given a trollop only 4 instead of 5. But for some reason, all the people were not that likable. There was a lack of, like, even with like something like Phineas Finn, you really kind of got to know him and just kind of root for him. And I wasn't really rooting for anyone in this one. I'm sorry to be like, I don't want to be too spoilery, because I know this is the group read for the whole thing and I'm already finished with it on the 1st of October. Sorry. So I won't go into great detail, and whenever I post stuff to the Discord, I always go to the spoiler part just because I don't want to say anything. But and it's probably just me. I have weird tastes. I know so many people love Gaskell, and my heretical opinion is Mary Barton is a terrible novel. I don't like it. Sorry. You can at me, but I did not like Mary Barton. I think it's a terrible novel. It has exactly the kind of cringy, goody sentimentality that I don't want to read about in my Victorian novels. But that could just be that one novel, and I may need to give another Gaskell a try. But it put me off Gaskell. You know, I've heard great things about Cranford and North and South. I don't know, we'll see. And so that's already done. And so let me talk a little bit. So that's the one thing that I finished since I last saw you guys. I don't know if I'd started it when I last, maybe I had, I don't know, I can't remember. And then, so what else is going on with my reading? So basically, I mean, I have my Kindle. I have all kinds of things that I've been dipping into on my Kindle, but I don't think I'll talk about that now. Maybe next week. I will come back next week. We'll come back more regularly. So I finished that one, but I also finished this very compelling, weird novel by Claire Schutzky. And it took me, and it was a bit of a wild ride, and it was a bit of an emotionally, it kind of is a novel that, even though I loved it and I gave it 5 stars, it put me in a weird mental space. And this is what I mean about when I'm in this weird, maybe overwrought mental space of being busy and anxious and irritable, and then reading something like this, which I did absolutely love. And the more I think about it, it's just like fantastic. And but it wasn't an easy read for that reason. It was just a little bit uncomfortable. But she wants to make you uncomfortable. And so my main thing with Chette, why I think it's really, really, and it's something that when I see people talking about it, I'm like, I don't think that's quite it for me. So it's about this woman, Tiny. She's tiny, apparently. And she's she's pregnant, and it's sort of fairy tale-esque in the sense that the first lines are, I dream I'm making tender love with an owl. And it turns out to be a female owl. And her owl lover impregnates her with an owl baby. And so you're right off the bat, you're like, okay, sure. And I just enjoyed going with it. I was like, okay, she actually is going to have an owl baby. And so I was sort of decided to be completely believing of what all the pronouncements she said, even though, of course, you could read it as a metaphor, or it's a dream she was having. It's kind of like a wish thing that she wished she was being made love to by an owl. But I just went with it, and the way she just talks about her baby. And of course, I do know that sort of it has an auto-fictional component in it. It's a fictionalized, not exactly even a retelling, but a sort of capturing of the deep upheaval of giving birth, specifically to a normal baby, I guess, in a certain sense. So on that level, there is a metaphorical parallel. But for me, just saying, oh, it's a metaphor for a baby that's not normal, I just don't think that's exactly what's going on here. I mean, I had all kinds of other thoughts, and for me at least, so the way it reads is basically, I always just assume that it is an actual owl baby. And the way she describes how it learns how to eat and hunt and fly, sort of more or less. But that's not to say that there are not passages and times in the narrative when the baby does sort of slip into wearing a pink dress or having sort of slightly more human moments, even before something else that happens that makes it more human. But so I kind of just always believed her and always just took her, like the whole, just calling her unreliable just doesn't seem to quite fit it. Because in a certain sense, she was completely reliable, even though what we're getting is her view of things, which it's just her view. And even if it's non-conforming and maybe seen as crazy, and at the end there's violence too involved, you kind of just have to accept it. I think the more you accept her narrative, the more you're going to get out of it. And so the setup is she's had this owl baby, and she has a female owl lover, so it's like two mothers, and yet she's in a relationship with a pretty unlikable, typical man who is depicted in a pretty negative light, I would have to say. He's not understanding of her. He doesn't get his wife at all. His family's completely overbearing and awful, and she's always on the outside of that family, and they have these weird big get-togethers where they that are a part of the narrative, and so then she has the owl baby, and he kept saying, no, it's going to be a normal baby, and she's like, no, it's an owl baby. And then once it is an owl baby, he cannot handle it, and so a lot of the novel is about him trying to sort of fit the owl baby into being a normal baby. And one thing I find sort of funny, it's actually, there's a lot of humor in here, is how normal kids are called dog children, which I think as a cat lover, I not to be anti-dog, but there's like either you're an owl baby, and see, of course, what's going on there, and is the sort of the binary, even though I think it's a non-binary novel between domesticated and wild or feral. And I guess one of the main themes, and it relates quite a bit to my fairy tale class where we talk about the civilizing process and what are the negative aspects of becoming civilized, being taught to fit into society, and what happens when creatures or people don't fit in for whatever reasons. How does society treat misfits and outsiders? The first section of our fairy tales is called Beastly Bridegrooms, and it's about women who give birth to beasts, metaphorically, and these beasts kind of then wanting to get married and stuff like that. So that kind of relates quite a lot to my class. So basically, not to dwell on it too much, so a couple of things that I just noted in the back here. So you have the owl baby and the human baby, and it's sort of, even from sentence to sentence, it can go back. It's a moving target. And the thing is, I think even that's sort of perhaps metaphorical of how you feel about raising children anyway. You have a good day and they seem very angelic, and you have a bad day and they're like the devil's spawn, like the sort of lack of stability in how you feel towards these creatures. But that's just one thing. So a moving target, back and forth. And even with the mother, so this parent, she sometimes becomes an owl, even though she's not an owl. She de-civilizes. It's a novel about de-evolutionary stuff or de-civilizing, and that sometimes that there's a joy in that, even if it's like one thing that was interesting about how the house becomes a habitat for the owl, and is full of dead animals and caves and carcasses and blood and guts, and then on the sort of taming side of things, the father wrenches the kid away, and she gets operated on. She wears sort of a metal skull, and she becomes a kind of robot human dog baby, but just because of these weird very invasive surgeries that this weird doctor performs. There's a lot of satire and humor in here. And it's really quite well written. And also another thing is, and I didn't check about Claire herself, but there's a lot of references to music playing. So the mother was a musician, and there are references to wonderful pieces of music. There's even a Spotify playlist around. So, and not quite sure. So the music kind of takes a back seat to when the baby comes along. So like she does kind of lose her identity in having to be there for this child who's very hard to rear because it's an owl baby. And, you know, owl babies poop up the place, and she's always kind of having to kind of clean it off the walls. It's an owl baby. It's a wild thing. It's not a normal baby. So, you know, whenever it doesn't eat the normal way, it wants different food, just as you would think an owl baby would. Anyway, I did love this novel, and I will read other things by Claire Oshetsky. And then a tangent, or I did discover her daughter is really interesting too. Patricia Traxon is a kind of interesting musician who does these really interesting video essays, sort of, I'm just going to say it, Patricia identifies as a dog, as a sort of, a furry type dog, but, and, you know, no shame there either. It's like, she really educated me in her videos as to where she's coming from with that. So, and I think she's actually really bright. Like, she's extremely, like, articulate in how she analyzes certain aspects of culture. She analyzes, if anyone knows the Austrian filmmaker Michael Haneke, who makes dark movies, specifically one called Funny Games. That's the one that Patricia has a really great video on. And although at that time, may have been before the transition, but anyway, very interesting woman in her own right. And I love her music too. It's kind of electronica. And she's got quite a following too. So what an interesting pair. Strong women. We love them. We love them. We love them. So that's that. And then back to what I'm going to be reading as much as time will allow. So I've already done the trollop. So I've already done that for Victober. And so the other things for Victober. So just this morning, I decided to start, and I'll do the same thing. I'll listen, but dip into Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy, who is my most underread Victorian. And I already started it, and I think it's going to be super special. I think Hardy's going to be up there. And on the Discord, I was asking about tier rankings for the Victorians, and, you know, George Eliot's top tier. I mean, for me, just in terms of reading enjoyment, Trollope and Dickens are up there too. I would say Wilkie Collins is one step down. I mean, Woman Who White was fine, but there was something at the end I didn't like. And then I'm a little bit fearful of starting. I mean, the Brontes, I love the Brontes too, but other ones I'm not so sure. Maybe Thackeray. So I'll start that. And then another one I'm really kind of interested in starting is, I've had it on my shelves, it's on my TBRs here, is Odd Women by Gissing. So maybe I'll try this one too. But then I had forgotten a little bit that I've committed somewhat to a Blue Sky. So instead of Twitter read-alongs, we're doing Blue Sky read-alongs now, that I'm going to endeavor to read Margaret Young's epic bio novel / whatever, not biography of Eugene V. Debs, Victor Debs. But apparently, from what I gather, is you find out more about her own vision of the world than you do about him specifically. She uses him as a jumping board to talk about her own things, which, you know what, it's Margaret Young, so it's fine by me. And I will try and find out as much about Debs on my own if I need to. But I love her writing. And I loved the New Harmony thing. If there's any, you know, cool things coming out of Indiana, one of them was definitely Margaret Young. I guess also Debs, the Green, the Nerd Fighters. So Indiana, cool. I'm there for it. We need to do the same for Ohio. But so yeah, it's like another very Indiana-centric thing to work on Debs. And apparently she wanted to work on someone else first, but then she kind of got sucked into working on this book for, I think it's her last work, over 20 years, and she didn't complete it. She died before she finished it. But I'm excited. It's a beautiful, heavy edition from Knopf, I think. Yeah, Knopf, 1999. And I'm reading along with Paper Pills on the Blue Sky. But this, if I actually read this, this is going to take me a while. This will slow me down. Like today, even apparently I fulfilled my Goodreads challenge of getting 35 books read this year, but that's because a lot of them I've listened to them and I've breezed through them more quickly than usual. So yay, in a certain sense. So I opted to 45, and we'll see. I mean, if I keep listening to things, it shouldn't be a problem. It's a little sad that I don't have more time to actually sit and read, but I read a lot of other stuff online anyway. It's okay. And most of the times when I am listening, I do kind of look at the text now and then. Not that much. With Chouette, I just read it. And this one I will just read. I don't think I want to go to an audio for this. So this will be my slow read for a while. And yeah, that's about that. 20 minutes. I don't think there's anything else I need to tell you guys. No, not for now. I have a lot of other things I need to do, and I need to get to bed soon. It's my bedtime because I get up really early to go teach. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for staying with me, and I will see you next week for sure. Bye.